When you take pictures with film, you get a negative, and that negative acts as a source for creating all kinds of interesting imagery. You can think of a camera raw file kind of like a negative for your digital images, and then you can open them up in Photoshop's Camera Raw 7 plugin and start making corrections to the tonal adjustments, the color corrections, etc. Because when you take a picture in Camera Raw, it doesn't process any information, it doesn't compress any information. All that data is available for you to make and interpret it as you will. Otherwise, the machine, the camera itself, or the device itself would actually interpret and create some decisions for you when you took that initial image. But by keeping a raw format, it keeps it larger, more data, more things that you can change. Now, in order to create an image in Camera Raw, it has to be done at the source, and you need a device that's going to support the Camera Raw format, and you also need the features enabled so that you can take it in that Camera Raw format. So it's very possible that you have some images that are Camera Raw, but it's also possible that some of your images just aren't in that format. For example, you took the picture with a smartphone or with some other device that just didn't have it enabled, or you inherited the image, it was a TIFF file that's already been edited, and you can still open up those images in Camera Raw and take advantage of the really great color correcting and tonal adjustment features that are available for you. And this tool has been around for a few versions, but photographers are really excited about the new one that comes with Photoshop CS6. That's the Camera Raw 7 plugin, and there's a lot of more intuitive adjustments, and it's a little bit more clean and sophisticated. Plus, with the Mercury Engine, things are loading faster and displaying it faster. So let's take a closer look, opening up a file in the Camera Raw format, and just see what we can discover. Here we go. I'm going to actually start by going to the bridge. And from the bridge, I can take an image and right-click on it and open it up in Camera Raw. Let's go ahead and do that. Give it a moment. And often when you work with this, you want to start on the top tools and then go towards the right-hand side and work down. That's kind of the official way to do that, although in some respects I just experiment a little bit. I have my favorite tools that I work with, and I suppose you will too. As I change my different tools, let's try this one for gradation, I'm going to notice that I'm getting some different settings on the side. So depending on what kind of tool you use, you actually will get different options. So we'll start with this first one with the white balance tool. And now I can go over to the side and start making some adjustments. Now the white balance or the temperature is going to help me with the overall lighting. And if I start changing them, you can get a kind of a tint on there. You can also use some default settings in there if you wanted to. I'll stick with custom. And I can make it warmer coloring or a cooler coloring. And I can also change some of the tint as well. If I scroll down a little bit, I can change exposure. Now the exposure is going to change a little bit of everything at once, and so sometimes this may be a little too much. So let's actually put the exposure back to 0. I'll just go ahead and type in 0. And let's take a closer look at these other items, which gives you a little bit more control over the details. And as I move the contrast, it's pulling in, you can see the darks. It's making them a little bit more vibrant. In this particular image, because it's so gray, the contrast, adding a little extra, makes a big difference. And then, of course, as you start moving the highlights, that is going to change the light and the dark colors. And in this particular image, that doesn't really make too much of a difference. And we can also adjust the shadows, maybe just a little bit of a shadow adjustment, the whites and the blacks. And again, it's going to vary depending on the image. And in this one, there's not a big, it doesn't have a really intense white or black feel to it. So in some respects, I wouldn't really make too many changes here. If I go down to clarity and we try the clarity sliders, if we go all the way to the side, I'm really getting a strong definition, really strong contrast in here between the items versus a more blurred look. This would be interesting. I'm going to be taking this into a filter. I think with this particular image, a little bit of clarity actually works. And I can go into vibrance and saturation. Now, vibrance has to do with the quality of the color, And if we pull up the vibrance, it's real subtle, but you can see how the blues and the oranges are a little bit more intense color. Otherwise, they're a little bit more muted color. But there still is some blue and some orange in there. Let's go ahead and pull it up just a little bit so they're more intensified. But the saturation is going to be a lot more obvious. If I pull the saturation up, it really makes those colors pop almost to the point where they're neon, or grays them out to the point where it's even a grayscale. And I think for this one, I'm going to leave the saturation pretty close to 0. Incidentally, the fact that all these numbers are easy to slide and vary in the middle, that's a new improvement in this version, and it makes it a lot easier for you to just kind of slide back and forth without having to guess which direction you should go. You can just try those sliders. I could also go over here to some of the other tools, and here's one called Graduated Filter. And when I click on that, I'm able to create an area or space that I want to focus on. And so, for example, I'm creating a space, I'm just changing the filter to have a starting point. But actually, I think what I want to do is use this to my advantage of working on the sea. So I'm going to actually come here and change the sea. I like the colors in the sky, and the skyline, and the element. But for the water here, go in and make some changes. And I can go in and adjust the temperature and the hit, etc. and start making some changes to that specific area, and it blends in beautifully for me. Now, once I have that image the way I like it, I could actually open it up and take a look at it in Photoshop, or I could save a copy of it. I'm going to go ahead and click on Save a Copy. Now, when I save a copy, I'm going to put it in the same location, and I'll just add a 1 to that. And then the extension is what I need to make sure I choose in order to save a copy that I can work with later. So I could save it as a JPEG or a TIFF. I think I'll save this as a Photoshop file. And let's go ahead and save that document. And while we're at it, let's just go ahead and open it up. And we'll see what it looks like here in Photoshop. And so here's a document that we were able to do quite a bit of color correcting using the Camera Raw tools. And in some respects, it's actually easier to color correct it in that new plugin than using all these amazing adjustment tools. So what you have is a plugin that allows you to tap into your images in new ways, whether those are Camera Raw files or perhaps just a JPEG or a TIFF file that you want to open up and explore with more depth.